Pemberton Holdings Tower, 40th floor, 2 a.m. Whitney Quinn found him sitting alone in the dark hallway, a quiet white stranger, hands shaking like leaves in winter.
Sir, can you hear me?
His lips moved. Nothing came out.
Stay with me. Hey, stay with me!
She knelt beside him. His skin was cold. This man was fading. Whitney reached into her bag. The turkey sandwich, her only food until morning. Her fingers hovered, her stomach clenched. She thought about Lily's medication, the empty fridge, the 12 hours ahead. Then she tore it in half.
Eat this slowly. I got you.
His eyes filled.
Why? Why would you?
Because somebody has to.
By dawn, a limousine would stop at her door, and everything Whitney Quinn knew would shatter. In the most beautiful way. But before the limousine, before the knock, before any of it, there was just Whitney. Whitney Quinn woke up every afternoon at exactly 2:15, not by choice, by necessity. Her body had learned to run on 5 hours of sleep, the way an old engine runs on fumes. Rough, loud, but still moving. The apartment sat on the 4th floor of a walk-up on Ridley Street, sandwiched between a laundromat that never closed and a bodega that smelled like burned coffee. No elevator, no dishwasher. The hot water worked on Mondays and Thursdays, if the building's boiler felt generous. The rent was $1,100 a month, and it took almost everything Whitney had. She would swing her legs off the mattress, pull on jeans and a sweatshirt, and start the routine. Wash Lily's school clothes in the kitchen sink, because the laundromat downstairs charged $2 a load, and $2 was milk money. Scrub the counter, wipe the stove, set out Lily's afternoon snack, usually a banana and 3 crackers with peanut butter, arranged on the plate in the shape of a smiley face, because Lily was 6, and 6-year-olds still believed that snacks could fix everything. Then she walked 9 blocks to Greenfield Elementary, waited by the chain-link fence with the other parents and grandparents, and watched for the small figure in the oversized purple coat. Lily always came out last. She walked slower than the other kids. She had to. Lily had been born with a ventricular septal defect, a hole in the wall between the 2 lower chambers of her heart. Most days, she was fine. She laughed, she drew pictures with crayons, she sang songs she made up about clouds and dogs. But some days, her lips turned a shade of blue that made Whitney's stomach drop. Some days, she sat on the couch and said, "Auntie, my chest feels funny." And Whitney would hold her and count the beats and pretend she wasn't terrified. The surgery cost $85,000. Insurance covered a portion, not enough, not even close. Whitney had done the math so many times the numbers lived behind her eyelids. She kept a tin box under the kitchen sink, and every week she folded whatever she could spare into it. After 3 years, the box held $12,340. At that rate, Lily would be 19 before Whitney had enough. The doctor said Lily didn't have that kind of time, so Whitney worked. She clocked in at Pemberton Holdings Tower every night at 10. She was part of a 4-person cleaning crew that handled floors 30 through 45. The lobby was marble, the offices were glass, the conference rooms had tables that cost more than her annual salary. She mopped them all. Her supervisor was a man named Dennis Hargrove, mid-50s, clipboard always in hand, never smiled. He called her Quinn instead of Whitney and docked pay for breaks that ran 30 seconds over. The other cleaners kept their heads down around him. Whitney did too. She couldn't afford not to. But the nights weren't all bad. There was Ruth Bellamy. Ruth was 60 years old, built like a fireplace, and had been cleaning buildings since before Whitney was born. She worked the floors below Whitney's, 20 through 29, but they shared the break room on the basement level. And that break room was where Whitney learned everything that mattered about surviving the night shift. Ruth taught her how to strip wax from marble without scratching it, how to clean a glass partition so it looked invisible, how to spot when someone's blood sugar was crashing. "The hands shake first," Ruth said once, unscrewing her insulin pen. "Then the face goes pale. You see that? You get sugar into them fast. Cookie, candy, juice, anything." Whitney filed that away without knowing she would need it. Most nights, they sat together for 15 minutes around 2 a.m., splitting whatever they'd brought. Ruth usually had cornbread wrapped in foil. Whitney brought a sandwich, turkey and cheese if it was a good week, peanut butter if it wasn't. They talked about Lily's drawings, Ruth's grandson in the Marines, the leak in Whitney's bathroom ceiling that the landlord wouldn't fix. "You know what I like about you, girl?" Ruth said one night, peeling tinfoil. "My sparkling personality? Your stubbornness. You don't quit. World keeps hitting you, and you just keep getting back up. Lily's lucky to have you." Whitney smiled, but in the elevator going back up to the 40th floor, she pressed her forehead against the cold metal wall and closed her eyes. Because the truth was, she was tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Tired in a way that sat in her bones and whispered, "How much longer can you keep this up?" Every night, before she left for work, she sang Lily to sleep. The same song. Every time, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." And every night, after the last verse, Lily would mumble into her pillow, "Auntie, are we going to have a house with a yard someday?" And every night, Whitney said, "Someday, baby, I promise." She didn't know if it was true, but she said it anyway, because that was what you did when you loved someone more than you loved the truth. But Whitney didn't know that the building she scrubbed every night held a secret on the executive floor, one that would find her on the coldest Tuesday of the year. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Whitney was folding Lily's school uniform on the kitchen counter when her phone buzzed. The screen showed Greenfield Elementary. She picked up before the second ring. "Ms. Quinn, this is Nurse Delgado. Lily had an episode during recess. We've called an ambulance. She's conscious, but..." Whitney didn't hear the rest. She was already running. She made it to Mercy General Hospital in 14 minutes. She ran 3 red lights. She left her car double-parked, with the door still open. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the small figure on the gurney behind the blue curtain in the pediatric emergency ward. Lily's lips were pale violet. An oxygen mask covered half her face. Her fingers curled around the edge of the hospital blanket like she was holding on to something only she could see. "Auntie." The word came out fogged by the mask. Whitney grabbed her hand. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." Dr. Harrison Cole arrived 20 minutes later. He was tall, calm, and precise, the kind of doctor who never raised his voice because he didn't need to. He pulled Whitney into a consultation room with a window that looked out on nothing but a parking garage, sat her down, and opened a manila folder. "Ms. Quinn, Lily's VSD has progressed. The shunting is increasing, and her pulmonary pressure is rising. We've been monitoring this for 2 years, and I have to be direct with you." Whitney's hands pressed flat against her thighs. "How direct?" "She needs surgical repair, open heart, within the next 3 months. If we wait beyond that window, the damage to her lungs may become irreversible." The room went quiet. The fluorescent light above them buzzed at a frequency that sounded like a wasp trapped in a jar. The total cost of the procedure, including pre-op, surgical fees, anesthesia, ICU recovery, and post-operative care. He slid a printed sheet across the table. The number sat at the bottom of the page, bolded and underlined, as if it knew exactly how heavy it was. $85,000. Whitney stared at it. She had seen the number before. She had calculated it, broken it down, divided it by her hourly wage, multiplied it by hours she didn't have. But seeing it on hospital paper with her niece's name printed at the top, made it real in a way that math alone never could. Insurance will cover approximately $31,000, Dr. Cole continued. That leaves a gap of roughly $54,000. There are payment plans, charitable funds. I can have our financial counselor sit with you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Whitney repeated. The word felt hollow. She sat in the hospital hallway for an hour after Dr. Cole left. Lily slept in the room behind her, stabilized, breathing through the mask. Nurses walked past. A janitor mopped the floor 3 feet from her shoes. The world kept moving. Whitney did not. She called the bank the next morning. A woman named Stacy, with a pleasant phone voice, told her that her credit score didn't qualify for a personal loan of that size. She tried a second bank. Same answer. A third. Same. She posted on GoFundMe that night, sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor while Lily slept. She wrote and deleted the description 4 times because she didn't know how to say, "My niece is dying, and I can't afford to save her," without it sounding like begging. She settled on something simple. She shared it on social media. She texted it to everyone in her contacts. After 1 week, the total stood at $2,100. Most of it came from Ruth, who sent $300 she probably couldn't spare. Whitney went back to work the next night, and the night after that, and every night that followed, because missing a shift meant losing hours, and losing hours meant losing insurance, and losing insurance meant losing Lily. She didn't tell Dennis Hargrove about any of it. She didn't tell anyone except Ruth. She cleaned the same floors, pushed the same cart, emptied the same trash cans in the same offices, where people earned in a day what she earned in a month. And she did not complain. She did not stop. She kept going the way Ruth said she would, stubborn, steady, breaking apart, on the inside, where nobody could see. One night, in the supply closet on the 35th floor, Ruth found her crying. Whitney sat on an overturned bucket, her face buried in a cleaning rag, her shoulders shaking without sound. Ruth didn't ask what happened. She already knew. She sat down on the floor beside her, put one heavy arm around Whitney's shoulders, and held her. "You keep going, baby," Ruth whispered. "God sees you, even when nobody else does." Whitney wiped her eyes, stood up, and pushed her cart back into the hallway. That was a Monday. 2 days later, on the coldest Tuesday of the year, the 40th floor would not be empty. Tuesday, the coldest night of the year. The temperature outside had dropped to 19 degrees by midnight. Inside Pemberton Holdings Tower, the heating system hummed through the walls, but the executive floor still carried a chill. The kind that crept up through marble floors and settled into your knees if you stood too long. Whitney clocked in at 10. She loaded her cart, mop, bucket, 3 bottles of disinfectant, a roll of trash bags, and the squeegee she'd taped together twice, because Dennis Hargrove wouldn't approve a new one. She ate nothing before her shift. Lily's medication refill had come due that morning, $22. Whitney paid it with the cash she'd set aside for groceries. The turkey sandwich in her bag was the only food she had. She'd made it at home, 2 slices of bread, 3 thin pieces of turkey, 1 square of cheese. She planned to eat it at 2 a.m. during her break with Ruth. She started on the 35th floor and worked her way up. Vacuumed the conference rooms on 36, emptied the bins on 37 and 38, polished the glass walls on 39. By 1:30 a.m., she reached the 40th floor, the executive level. This floor was different. The carpet was thicker, the doors were heavier. The artwork on the walls wasn't printed. It was painted. Real oil on real canvas. Whitney had cleaned around those paintings for 4 years and never once touched them. She was afraid her fingerprints would somehow lower their value. She pushed her cart through the double glass doors and turned right toward the corner offices. Mop first. then dusting, then trash. Same pattern, same path, same silence. Then she saw him. A man sat on the long leather bench in the hallway between the CEO's office and the boardroom. He was white, maybe 70, maybe older. He wore gray slacks and a wrinkled blue button-down. No tie, no jacket. His head leaned against the wall behind him. His eyes were half open, but unfocused, staring at the ceiling like he was trying to read something written in the plaster. His hands were shaking. Whitney slowed her cart. She'd never seen anyone on this floor past midnight. Security was downstairs. The executives left by 7, 8 at the latest. This man looked like he belonged here. His clothes were expensive. His watch caught the light. But he also looked like he was about to fall off the edge of something. Sir? No response. Sir? Hey? Are you all right? His head turned slowly. His eyes found hers but couldn't hold them. His lips moved. I'm fine. Just resting. He wasn't fine. Whitney knew that look. Ruth's voice came back to her like a recording. The hands shake first. Then the face goes pale. You see that? You get sugar into them fast. His face was the color of candle wax. When's the last time you ate something? Whitney asked, kneeling beside him. He blinked, thought about it. This morning. Maybe yesterday morning. I can't remember. Okay, stay right there. Whitney walked to her cart. She unzipped her bag. The sandwich sat inside, wrapped in a paper towel. The one Lily had drawn a small sun on with a yellow crayon that morning. Whitney looked at it. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't eaten in over 20 hours. Her hands were a little shaky, too. She picked it up, tore it in half, and walked back. Here. She held the sandwich in front of him. Eat this, slowly. The man looked at the food, then at her. That's your dinner. It's a sandwich, sir. Just eat. I can't take your... You can and you will. Come on. He took the half with trembling fingers. He bit into it, chewed slowly. Whitney unscrewed the cap on her personal water bottle and held it for him while he drank. She watched his color come back, first in his lips, then in his cheeks. The trembling slowed. His breathing steadied. They sat together on that bench for nearly 20 minutes. The hallway was silent except for the hum of the building's ventilation system and the faint ticking of a clock inside the boardroom. What's your name? The man asked quietly. Whitney. I clean this floor. Every night? Every night. He nodded slowly, looking at the half sandwich in his hands, like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever held. My wife used to make turkey sandwiches. Same bread, same cheese. She said fancy food was just regular food that forgot where it came from. Whitney smiled. She sounds smart. She was. His voice cracked on the second word. She passed 3 weeks ago. Whitney didn't say she was sorry. She didn't say anything at all. She just sat there, shoulder to shoulder with a man she'd never met, in a building she cleaned for $11 an hour, and let the silence hold the weight that words couldn't. After a while, the man straightened up. Color had returned to his face. His hands were still. Thank you, Whitney. You feeling better? More than you know. She stood, brushed off her uniform, and picked up her mop. You should go home, sir. Get some real food, and maybe don't skip meals. Your body doesn't like it. He almost smiled. I'll try. Whitney pushed her cart down the hallway. At the corner, she turned back once. The man was still sitting on the bench, looking at the paper towel in his hand, the one with Lily's small yellow sun drawn on it. He folded it carefully and put it in his shirt pocket. She didn't think much of it. She finished her shift, took the bus home, and crawled into bed beside Lily at 6:15 a.m. She never asked his name. She didn't need to. He was just a tired old man who needed half a sandwich and 5 minutes of someone giving a damn. But the man on the bench was Arthur Pemberton, founder and chairman of Pemberton Holdings, The name etched into the marble above the lobby entrance, the face in the portrait she dusted every Tuesday on the 40th floor, though she'd never looked at it closely enough to make the connection. Arthur Pemberton, who owned the building, who owned 16 buildings, who had built a $3 billion company from a single hardware store in 1979. Arthur Pemberton, who sat alone on the executive floor of his own empire at 2 a.m. because his wife Eleanor was gone and the penthouse felt like a coffin, and the only person in a building of 800 employees who stopped to ask if he was okay was the woman who mopped the floors. He reached into his shirt pocket and touched the paper towel with the yellow sun. His eyes burned. He wasn't going to forget her. Arthur Pemberton didn't go home that night. He sat on the bench for another hour after Whitney left, listening to the fading squeak of her cartwheels down the hallway. Then he stood, walked into his office, and closed the door. He didn't touch the stack of inheritance papers on his desk. He didn't open his laptop. He sat in the dark and held the paper towel with the yellow sun and thought about Eleanor. Eleanor would have done the same thing. She would have given the whole sandwich, not half. She would have sat with the stranger longer. She would have asked about his family, his story, his name. Eleanor had been like that, the kind of woman who carried granola bars in her purse, not for herself, but for anyone who looked hungry on the street. 3 weeks without her, and the world had already started proving her wrong. People walked past each other. Employees in his own building avoided eye contact in elevators. His own son called once a week out of obligation, not love. Arthur had begun to believe that kindness, the real kind, the kind that costs you something, had gone extinct. Then a cleaning woman with an empty stomach gave him half her dinner and didn't even ask his name. At 6:30 a.m., Arthur picked up his phone and called Graham Walsh, his executive assistant. Graham had worked for Arthur for 11 years and knew better than to ask why the old man was calling before sunrise. "Graham, I need you to find someone for me." "Of course, sir. Who?" "A woman on the night cleaning crew. First name Whitney. Last initial Q. She works the 40th floor." A pause. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "No." Graham didn't press. He never did. Meanwhile, Whitney rode the 6:05 a.m. bus home. She leaned her head against the window and watched the city wake up. Coffee shops pulling their gates, delivery trucks double parking, a man walking a dog that was bigger than he was. Her stomach growled. She'd given away half her only meal and eaten the other half at 3 a.m., standing in the supply closet because Dennis had cut the break short by 10 minutes. She climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, unlocked the door, and found Lily asleep on the couch with the TV still on. A bowl of dry cereal sat on the coffee table. Lily had gotten herself a snack. The sight of it cracked something in Whitney's chest. 6 years old and already learning to take care of herself because her aunt couldn't always be there. Whitney turned off the TV. She lifted Lily, careful, always careful, and carried her to bed. She pulled the blanket up to her chin and pressed her lips to her forehead. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. She didn't know how, but she said it anyway. Later that morning, she called Ruth. "Something weird happened last night." "Weird how? Dennis weird or ghost weird?" "I found this old man on the exec floor, like sitting alone in the dark. He looked terrible, shaking, pale, hadn't eaten. I gave him half my sandwich." Ruth was quiet for a moment. "The 40th floor, past midnight." "Yeah." "Honey, nobody's on that floor past midnight except ghosts and billionaires." Whitney laughed. "He was just some old guy, Ruth. He looked so lost, like he didn't have anyone." "What did he say?" "He said his wife used to make turkey sandwiches." Ruth made a sound. Half hum, half sigh. "Sometimes the loneliest people are the ones with the biggest houses. You did good, baby." Whitney thanked her, hung up, and forgot about it. She had Lily's doctor appointment to reschedule. She had a shift to prepare for. She had $54,000 standing between her niece and survival. The old man on the bench was a small moment in a long night, and long nights were all Whitney had. But Arthur Pemberton did not forget. In his shirt pocket, the paper towel with the yellow sun sat folded against his heartbeat. And he was already making a phone call that Whitney Quinn would not see coming. Graham Walsh was efficient. That was why Arthur kept him. By noon the next day, a manila folder sat on Arthur's desk. Inside, a single page, employee profile, night cleaning crew, Pemberton Holdings Tower. Whitney Quinn, age 32, hired 4 years ago. No disciplinary record, no complaints. Perfect attendance. Graham stood on the other side of the desk, hands clasped. She's been on the night shift since day 1, floors 30 through 45. Her supervisor is Dennis Hargrove. Arthur read the page again. Family. 1 dependent, a niece, Lily Quinn, age 6. Whitney is her legal guardian. The parents are deceased. Arthur looked up. Deceased how? Car accident. 3 years ago. Whitney took custody immediately. No other family listed. Arthur set the folder down. He removed his glasses and pressed 2 fingers against the bridge of his nose. What about medical? Does the company insurance cover the child? Graham hesitated. That was unusual. Graham never hesitated. Sir, I looked into that. The child has a congenital heart defect, ventricular septal defect. She needs open heart surgery. The total estimated cost is $85,000. Our insurance plan covers approximately $31,000. The remaining balance, roughly $54,000, is unfunded. The room went still. Arthur turned his chair toward the window. 40 floors below, the city moved. Taxis, buses, people crossing at crosswalks, all of it small and distant and indifferent. Somewhere down there, a woman who had given him half her sandwich was trying to figure out how to save a 6-year-old's life with a tin box under her kitchen sink. She has a GoFundMe page, Graham added quietly. It's raised just over $2,000. Arthur closed his eyes. He could hear Eleanor's voice, clear as morning. You know what to do, Arthur. You've always known. You just take too long to do it. Graham, sir, I need you to make some calls. Quietly. I don't want her to know it's coming from me. Not yet. What kind of calls, sir? Arthur opened his eyes. The kind that fixes things. Graham nodded once and left the room. That same night, Whitney arrived for her shift and noticed something different on the 40th floor. The leather bench in the hallway had a small cushion on it now. A water cooler had been installed beside the elevator. A bowl of wrapped granola bars sat on the counter of the executive kitchenette, the one she'd never seen stocked before. She didn't connect any of it to the old man from Tuesday. But the wheels were already turning. Whitney just didn't know it yet. 2 weeks passed. Whitney kept working, kept climbing 4 flights of stairs, kept singing Lily to sleep, kept folding bills into the tin box. The number had reached $12,510, still not a quarter of what she needed. Then the letter arrived. White envelope, Mercy General Hospital logo. Whitney found it in her mailbox on a Thursday, wedged between an electricity bill and a pizza coupon. She almost threw it away. Hospital letters meant bills, and bills meant math she didn't want to do. She opened it at the kitchen table while Lily colored on the floor. Pre-surgical consultation for Lily Quinn, scheduled. November 14th, 10 a.m., surgical team. Dr. Harrison Cole, lead. Dr. Renee Ashford, pediatric cardiac anesthesiology. Pemberton Memorial Cardiac Center. Whitney read it 3 times. Her hands began to shake. She hadn't scheduled anything, hadn't paid anything, hadn't called anyone. Auntie, what's wrong? Lily stared up at her with wide brown eyes. and a green crayon in her fist. "Nothing, baby. Auntie just got a letter. I need to make a phone call." She stepped into the bathroom, closed the door, and dialed the number on the letterhead. "Mercy General, surgical scheduling. This is Andrea. I'm calling about a consultation for my niece, Lily Quinn, but I didn't schedule it." Keyboard clicking. "Ms. Quinn, Lily's consultation was arranged and fully funded by an anonymous donor. The full cost, $85,000, has been covered. Pre-op, surgery, anesthesia, ICU recovery, and 12 months of follow-up." Whitney sat on the edge of the bathtub. The tiles were cold under her bare feet. Lily hummed in the next room. A song about clouds she'd made up herself. "Did you say fully funded?" "Yes, ma'am. No outstanding balance." "Who paid for it?" "The donor requested anonymity, Ms. Quinn." She hung up, sat there. The faucet dripped. Lily's humming drifted through the door. Whitney pressed both hands against her face and cried without sound, the way she'd learned to do, so Lily wouldn't hear. She called Ruth that night. "Ruth, someone paid for Lily's surgery. All of it. $85,000. Silence. Then Ruth's voice cracked open. "Lord have mercy. Baby, that's a miracle. It doesn't feel real. It's real. You hear me? It's real." Whitney checked her GoFundMe. Still $2,100. No new donations. This hadn't come from the internet. It had come from someone who knew. Someone with access to Lily's records and the kind of money that writes $85,000 checks without blinking. The next morning, Whitney swiped her badge at the Pemberton lobby. The receptionist, Tessa Caldwell, called out to her, "Ms. Quinn, Mr. Walsh from the executive office asked if you could come to the 40th floor at 9. Whitney's stomach dropped. "Why?" "He didn't say." She rode the elevator alone. Her reflection stared back in the polished doors. Cleaning uniform, sneakers, hair pulled tight. She ran through every scenario. Dennis filed a complaint. She broke a rule she didn't know existed. She wasn't supposed to have been on that floor at 2 a.m. The doors opened. Graham Walsh stood waiting. Navy suit, calm face. "Ms. Quinn, thank you for coming. Follow me, please." He led her past the leather bench with the new cushion, past the water cooler, past the granola bars, to the heavy oak door at the end of the hall. He knocked once and opened it. The office was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows, a mahogany desk the size of a small boat, and behind it, in a charcoal suit with a silver tie, sat the man from the bench, the man she had given half her sandwich. He stood. Behind him, on the wall, hung the portrait she had dusted every Tuesday for 4 years without ever looking at closely. The brass nameplate read, "Arthur J. Pemberton, founder and chairman." Whitney's knees softened. Her breath caught between her lungs and her throat. She looked at the portrait. She looked at the man. She looked at the portrait again. That's you. That's me. You own this building." "I do." Whitney gripped the back of the nearest chair. The man she'd fed a turkey sandwich at 2 a.m. on a cold Tuesday, the man she thought was just some lost old stranger, was the billionaire whose name was carved into the stone above the door she walked through every night. Arthur gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please, sit down." Whitney didn't move. Her hand was still gripping the back of the chair like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes kept darting between the man and the portrait. The same jawline, the same deep-set eyes, the same slight tilt of the head. How had she missed it? 4 years of dusting that frame, and she had never once stopped to look. "Ms. Quinn, please." She sat, slowly. The leather chair was softer than anything she'd ever sat in. She didn't lean back. She sat on the edge, spine straight, hands folded in her lap, like a student called to the principal's office. Arthur studied her for a moment. Then he opened a drawer, pulled out a folded paper towel, and placed it on the desk between them. A small yellow sun, drawn in crayon, smiled up from the center. Whitney stared at it. "You kept that?" "I haven't let go of it since that night." Arthur sat back. "Ms. Quinn, do you know how long I sat on that bench before you found me?" "No, sir." 43 minutes. There are 3 security cameras in that hallway. I checked the footage the next day. 43 minutes, 2 security guards walked past on their rounds. One of them looked directly at me and kept walking. A maintenance technician came up to check the HVAC system, saw me, and took the service elevator back down. He paused. Let the silence carry the weight. 3 people saw me. Not one of them stopped. Not one of them asked if I was okay. In a building with my name on it. In a hallway I built. Whitney didn't know what to say. She looked at the paper towel. Lily had drawn that sun the morning before, a quick scribble while eating cereal. It was supposed to be throwaway. It was supposed to mean nothing. "And then you came," Arthur continued, "pushing a cleaning cart at 2 in the morning. You stopped. You knelt. You gave me half of the only food you had." His voice thinned. "You didn't know I owned this building. You didn't know my name. You just saw a tired old man and decided he mattered. Anyone would have done that, Mr. Pemberton." "No." The word came out firm, almost sharp. "They wouldn't. I have the footage to prove it." Arthur opened a second folder on his desk. This one was thicker. He turned it toward Whitney. "I asked Graham to look into your situation. I know about Lily. I know about the VSD. I know about the surgery, the cost, the insurance gap. I know about the GoFundMe. I know about the tin box." Whitney's breath caught. "How do you know about the tin box?" "Because Graham is very good at his job, and because I told him not to stop until he understood everything." Arthur's eyes were steady. No apology in them. Only intention. "Ms. Quinn, I'd like to offer you 3 things. I need you to hear all 3 before you respond." Whitney nodded. Her throat was tight. "First, Lily's surgery has been fully funded. You received the letter. Dr. Cole will lead the team. Dr. Ashford is one of the best pediatric cardiac anesthesiologists in the country. The procedure will take place at Pemberton Memorial Cardiac Center, a facility my wife Eleanor helped establish 11 years ago. Lily will receive the best care available. That is not negotiable. It's already done." Whitney's eyes filled. She blinked hard. She would not cry in this office. Not here. Not yet. "Second, I've established a trust, the Eleanor Pemberton Education Fund, in my wife's name. Lily has been enrolled as the first recipient. Full tuition. Elementary through college. Books, supplies, tutoring, whatever she needs. Eleanor believed that every child deserved a chance that wasn't determined by a zip code. Lily will have that chance." Whitney's chin trembled. She pressed her lips together and looked at the ceiling. The fluorescent lights blurred. Third. Arthur leaned forward. "Pemberton Holdings operates 12 commercial properties across the city. Each one has a cleaning crew. Each crew reports to a floor supervisor. Those supervisors report to a facilities manager, who reports to an operations director who has never once set foot on a night shift." He paused. "I'm creating a new position, Facilities Operations Manager. You would oversee all cleaning operations across all 12 buildings. 214 employees. You'd set the schedules, manage the budgets, hire and fire. The salary is 4 times what you're making now, with full benefits and a pension plan." Whitney shook her head. It was involuntary, like a reflex. "Mr. Pemberton, I can't. I gave you half a sandwich. That's not worth all this." Arthur picked up the paper towel. He held it the way someone holds a photograph of a person they've lost. "My wife Eleanor said something to me once. We were young. We had nothing. She made turkey sandwiches every night because that's all we could afford. And one evening, I complained about it. I said I was tired of turkey. Do you know what she told me? Whitney shook her head. She said, "The best people in this world are the ones who give when they have nothing left. Anyone can be generous with a full plate. The ones who share from an empty one, those are the ones worth knowing." He set the paper towel down. "You shared from an empty plate, Ms. Quinn. Eleanor would have loved you." Whitney broke. The tears came hard and fast. She covered her face with both hands and sobbed in the leather chair in the enormous office on the 40th floor of a building she had mopped every night for 4 years. And for the first time in a long time, they weren't tears of exhaustion or fear or desperation. They were tears of someone who had finally been seen. The surgery was scheduled for November 14th. Whitney held Lily's hand all the way to the operating room doors. Lily wore a hospital gown with tiny blue stars on it, and she looked up at Whitney with eyes that were too calm for a 6-year-old about to have her chest opened. "Auntie, will it hurt?" "Not while you're sleeping, baby. And when you wake up, I'll be right there. Promise?" "Promise." Ruth sat in the waiting room. She'd taken the day off, the first sick day she'd used in 11 years. She brought cornbread wrapped in foil and a thermos of sweet tea, and she sat in the same plastic chair for 5 hours without moving. Every time a nurse walked past, Ruth's eyes followed them like a hawk, tracking a mouse across a field. The surgery took 4 hours and 38 minutes. Dr. Cole came out in scrubs, mask pulled down around his chin, and said the words Whitney had been waiting 3 years to hear. "It went well. The defect is repaired. She's stable." Whitney's legs gave out. Ruth caught her. They stood in the middle of the surgical waiting room, 2 cleaning women holding each other up, crying into each other's shoulders, while strangers pretended not to watch. Lily spent 6 days in recovery. Whitney slept in the chair beside her bed every night. Arthur sent flowers, white lilies, because Graham had told him the child's name. The card read, "From a friend who owes you half a sandwich." A P. Lily held the card and smiled. "Auntie, who's AP?" "Someone good, baby. Someone very good." 6 months later, Whitney Quinn walked into Pemberton Holdings Tower through the front entrance. Not the service door in the back, not the loading dock, the front door with the brass nameplate above it. She wore a navy blazer, pressed slacks, and a badge that read, "Whitney Quinn, Facilities Operations Manager." The first thing she did was visit every night shift crew in every building, all 12 properties. She showed up at midnight with a clipboard and a box of sandwiches, turkey and cheese, wrapped in paper towels, and sat with each crew during their break. She learned their names, she learned their stories, she learned who had bad knees, who had kids in daycare, who was working 2 jobs to cover rent. She created a program called Night Shift Care. Every floor in every Pemberton building received a small station, a water cooler, a first aid kit, a basket of snacks, and a laminated card that read, "You matter here. If you need anything, call this number." The number went directly to Whitney's phone. Dennis Hargrove was reassigned to a warehouse facility in New Jersey. Whitney didn't request it. Arthur didn't explain it. It simply happened. The night crews didn't ask questions. They just exhaled. Arthur, meanwhile, established the Eleanor's Kindness Fund, a company-wide program that provided emergency financial assistance to any Pemberton employee facing a medical crisis, housing instability, or family emergency. The fund was seeded with $2 million of Arthur's personal money. Within 6 months, it had helped 43 families. The story reached the local news. A reporter from Channel 9 showed up at Pemberton Tower with a camera crew. The segment aired on a Tuesday evening, the same day of the week Whitney had split her sandwich. The headline read, half a sandwich, a whole new life. The hashtag sandwich that changed a life trended locally for 3 days. Other companies called. They wanted to know how to build their own employee kindness programs. Whitney spoke at a corporate responsibility conference downtown, her first time on a stage, her first time wearing a microphone. Her hands shook the entire time, but her voice didn't. "I'm not special," she told the room. "I just saw someone who needed help. That's it. That's the whole story. The hard part isn't giving. The hard part is noticing." Lily, meanwhile, ran. For the first time in her life, she ran across a playground without stopping to catch her breath. She drew a picture of it. Stick figure Lily, arms wide, legs mid-stride, a big yellow sun overhead, and gave it to Arthur the next time he visited. He framed it. It hung in his office beside the portrait, beside the diplomas, beside the photographs of Eleanor, a crayon drawing of a child running under a yellow sun, in the office of a billionaire, right where it belonged. 1 year later, on a Tuesday night, Whitney Quinn walked the 40th floor alone. She didn't have to. She hadn't cleaned a floor in months. She had an office now, small, glass-walled, on the 8th floor of Pemberton Tower, with a desk and a computer and a nameplate that still made her pause every time she saw it. But some Tuesday nights, after the last email was sent and the last schedule was approved, she rode the elevator to 40 and walked the hallway. The bench was still there. It had a brass plaque on it now, small and polished, mounted on the armrest, Eleanor's bench, where kindness sat down. Arthur had it installed without telling anyone. Whitney found it one night and stood in front of it for 10 minutes, reading the words over and over until they stopped making her cry and started making her smile. Tonight, she sat on it. She set down 2 things, her bag and a turkey sandwich wrapped in a paper towel. She always carried an extra now, every shift, every building visit, one for herself, one for whoever might need it. Most nights, nobody did. But Whitney carried it anyway, because Ruth had taught her that kindness wasn't about waiting for the right moment. It was about being ready when the moment came. Her phone buzzed, Arthur's name on the screen. She smiled and answered, "You're on the bench again, aren't you?" "How do you always know?" "Because it's Tuesday, and you're predictable." She laughed. They talked for a while, about the new building in Midtown that needed a crew, about Graham's retirement party next month, about Eleanor's fund reaching its 100th family. Arthur's voice was stronger now, steadier. The grief was still there, it always would be. But it had softened into something he could carry, instead of something that carried him. Before he hung up, he said what he always said on Tuesdays. "Thank you, Whitney." And she said what she always said back. "It was just a sandwich, Mr. Pemberton." "No, it wasn't." She hung up and sat in the quiet, 40 floors above the city. The hallway hummed the same low hum it always had. The same fluorescent lights, the same marble floors. Everything looked the same as the night she found him here. But nothing was. At home, Lily was asleep, healthy, strong, growing into a kid who ran faster than anyone in her second-grade class and drew yellow suns on everything she touched. Tomorrow, Whitney would wake up at 7 a.m., not 2:15. She would make breakfast, not ration it. She would walk Lily to school, not from exhaustion, but from joy. But tonight, she sat on Eleanor's bench and ate half a sandwich. She left the other half on the seat beside her, just in case. Have you ever split your last meal with someone you didn't know? Not because you had plenty, not because it was easy, but because you looked at another human being and thought, they need this more than I do. Whitney Quinn sat in a dark hallway at 2 a.m. with an empty stomach and a trembling stranger, and she tore her only sandwich in half. No cameras, no audience, no reward in sight, just a woman, a piece of bread, and a decision that most people would never make. If this story made you feel something, tell me. When was the last time a stranger showed you kindness? Or you showed kindness to a stranger? Drop it in the comments. I want to read every single one. Share this with someone who needs it. And subscribe. Because stories like Whitney's deserve to be heard.
Whitney cleaned that man's floor for 4 years. There stood her portrait every Tuesday, and the one night he needed someone to stop and ask if he's okay. Not security, not maintenance. The cleaning lady with an empty stomach was the only one who did. She didn't give him half that sandwich because he had extra. That's was only food until morning, and she still tore it in half for a man she never met. Eleanor Templeton once said, "Anyone can be generous with a full plate. The ones who share from an empty one, those are the ones worth knowing." That 32nd this season at 2 a.m. paid for $85,000 Shazani, who leaded her through school, changed 200 workers' lives, not because Whitney wanted something back, because she saw someone. And real talk, how many times do we walk past somebody and just keep going? Not because we are bad people, we are tired, we got our own bills, our own problems. But Whitney was tired too, she was broke too, she still stopped. So, when was the last time a stranger showed you unexpected kindness? Or when were you a stranger for someone else? Drop it in the comments. I wanna read anyone. If this hit you, share it with someone who needs it today. Hit subscribe because the next story is gonna be shock you. You never know who's on that bench at 2 a.m. Be the one who stops.